Markets now, shares in Asia were mostly higher as investors continued monitoring the situation surrounding China's Evergrande Group. The Hang Seng Index rising 1.1% following losses earlier in the week. It had returned to trade after a holiday yesterday. Mainland Chinese stocks closed higher. Markets in Japan are closed for the day. Looking at what's happening in Europe, stocks on that side opened a little bit higher as global markets reacted to the latest statements from the U.S. Federal Reserve, in which it said it was not ready to taper monetary stimulus yet. In the U.S., the Department of Labor will release its initial jobless claims number, while several companies, such as Nike, for instance, are on the deck to be releasing their quarterly updates. To talk to us about yesterday, or rather last night's Fed Reserve, and also what we can expect from our own Reserve Bank this afternoon, we are joined by Patrick Matidi, who is the head of equities at Aluwani Capital. Patrick, thank you so much for your time. I mean, before we even look at the JSE, at initial glance, what did you think of the Fed minutes?
Hi, good afternoon, Anastasia, and to your viewers, and thanks for having me. I think those minutes were well anticipated in the sense that if you look at the last few weeks and months, the market has kind of been caught in this, toing and froing with regards to what the next move from the Fed would be. So they came out and gave a very clear guidance that indeed, they will start tapering towards the end of the year. However, I think the key thing, though, is that they are still on pause when it comes to raising rates, which was one factor that the market was actually looking for in terms of guidance. So I think the market took a lot of comfort in the fact that rates will remain low for a bit longer because they are not seeing inflationary pressures coming through on a permanent basis. And as a result, we saw the U.S. market closing in positive territory, which then flowed on to Asia this morning.
The fact that they've adjusted their core PCE inflation projections, does that mean that they are starting to get a little bit worried about inflation?
Look, the inflationary pressures have been there, right? So as the economies around the globe, especially the U.S., have been opening up, as a result of the rollout of the vaccination process, we have seen supply chain disruptions, which have resulted in inflation. However, the big question was, is this inflationary pressure permanent or transitionary, as in, it's part of the reopening of the economy. So they have adjusted, their core PCE up, but I think the key message still remains that they don't think that those pressures are permanent to then warrant a change in monetary policy, as in start hiking rates.
As a result of those U.S. developments and the performance of Chinese markets, how are we looking on the JSE so far?
We're struggling a bit. We did open up at some point about 1%. We seem to be fading. At this point in time, we're up about 0.4%, led largely by the industrials, but resources a bit flat and financials are struggling, sort of down about 0.6% as we speak.
So we had Spur releasing their financials. What did you make of the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, they were not, good numbers, but I guess not to be, not unexpected given the environment. So they reported full year numbers for the period ended June 2021. So in there, you'll have the half year period, which is July last year to December, which was pretty much, the thick of the lockdown, which, as you recall, we only got out of level 5 around August or so. But also, if you look at the period post then, December, early this year, we had a lot of stop-start in terms of a lockdown and some restrictions, especially around alcohol sales, which had, a negative impact on their numbers. So revenue was down about, 10%, same as sort of the earnings, which I guess, an indication of very, very tough trading conditions that they have experienced. And looking forward from an outlook point of view, they continue to express a hardship. People are not really slimming back, but they are seeing some green shoots, especially with the sit-down restaurants where people want to get out and get a bit of sun, especially now in spring. And hopefully this time next year, we would have seen some recovery coming through on a sustained basis.
So you had two announcements today, one from Discam and one from Clicks. The Discam one was the announcement relating to a completed transaction to acquire Medicare Health, and the Clicks announcement was that the current CEO, Vikesh Ramsunder, is stepping down to take up a CEO position in Australia. If you had to pick between Discam and Clicks, which one would you go for and why?
So we've always liked Clicks. It's a good quality company in the sense that it is well run. It does continue to grow and market share, especially despite the macro environment. And we like the fact that even though there are changes in management, they tend to grow their own people. So the leadership helm does not come from someone from the outside, but it's from an insider. In this case, it's a lady, Bettina Engelbrecht, which again, from a transformation point of view, it has to be welcomed because as I think she's the only black female at this point in time on the JSE from a CEO point of view. So from those perspectives, just qualitatively, but also just being a good, well-run business that grows earnings and has a decent dividend policy. Our preference has always been on Clicks versus Discam. Discam, it's not that we don't like the business, it's just that they have not listed that long, so the track record is not as compelling compared to Clicks that has got a long history as a listed entity.
So this is slightly off tangent, and this is building on Vikesh Ramsunder leaving to go to Australia. And I'm curious here, to what extent do you and your friends in your close circle discuss this, the sort of loss of SA talent or CEOs moving to different countries? Does that worry you that we have a lot of skilled talent leaving South Africa?
Yeah, it is a concern, especially if, to the extent that those are scarce skills. But I think it is also a challenge that has to be welcomed in the sense that, we have to grow our own people, to can, rise up and take those positions as and when they become available. So for us, and especially in this case with Clicks, it is indeed pleasing that, they actually went for someone from within the business, as opposed to other companies that tend to parachute foreigners in who do not really know our background and our backyard and to come run some of our big companies. So we really do appreciate and welcome this move from Clicks' point of view.
All right, Patrick, thank you so much for your time. That is Patrick Matidi, who is the head of equities at Aluwani Capital.